just go back a couple of steps. When we were talking about what awareness is, how is emotional intelligence awareness perhaps different from like road awareness? When you're crossing the road, you're aware that you have to look before you cross the street and all that kind of thing so that you don't get hit by cars. How's that different to the awareness when you're in the moment and you're being emotionally intelligent and feeling those kind of emotions? Is there a difference between them?
Yeah, I think there is a difference between the two. Basically, if I take the example you gave of when you're about to cross the road and you go left and right, if you think about this, can you tell me, are you aware at 100% of what's happening before you cross the road? Or are you doing this because it's a habit that you have developed since your childhood?
Habit.
So you, in that moment, this is not awareness.
So it's more of an instinct because it's just something that over time you've developed, and every time you come to a crossing, you know to look before you cross. It's not something you're just going to walk out.
Absolutely. It's basically something that you have developed over time, which is like, it's a mechanical thing. I come to the crossing path, I go left, right, there's no one, I can go. I go left, right, there's a car, I stop. It's a mechanical process that you don't need to even think about it in order to do that. So this is not awareness, but to become a subconscious process, because this is what it is at that stage, at the very source of it, at the very root of it, you had to be aware. The first few times that you crossed the road, you had to be aware that you had to look for it, look left, look right, and then cross if there was no car. But if you never developed awareness at that stage, you would never be able to do it. So if you prefer the awareness, it's a routine. It's routine process. When you start a new routine, it comes from a state of awareness. After 3 weeks, awareness is not necessary anymore because the routine is anchored into your brain in your subconscious, so you don't even need to think about it anymore. So if we link this back to emotional intelligence and that type of things, well, basically, it's going to take you awareness to become aware. But the more you do it, the more unaware you're going to become about the fact that you're aware.
Right.
So basically, you're going to develop the routine and the habit of being consistently aware.
Okay. So is that...
that's playing with the words. But basically, it's in fact, it's about, if I say awareness, if I tell you the word awareness right now, when you think about awareness, you become alarmed of everything around you. If I keep telling you every hour on the dot at 1 p.m., I tell you awareness, you're going to become alarmed of everything around you. At 2 p.m., I say awareness, you're going to become alarmed of everything around you. And so on and so on and so on, until at some point, you're going to become aware all the time. You're going to become aware all the time. Now, you're going to pick your battles. You're going to pick what do you want to be aware about and what is it that you don't want to be aware about. And if you prefer, the game with awareness is always to choose what do you want to be aware about. And I'm bringing this back to what we talk about, the positive and the negative. I think this is where the focus should be. You don't need to be aware for something that are neutral. I think it's just a waste of time and energy, but it's very important to understand. Be aware of what motivates you. Be aware of what challenges you, because you want to increase what motivates you and you want to work on what gets you something negative. Your strengths and weaknesses, if you prefer. Make your strengths stronger and cover your weaknesses in order to not have these weaknesses anymore.
Right. So if we really wanted to be, we could be aware all the time. However, our energy needs to be focused on the things that are positive and make us happy and drive us and motivate us. That's what we really need to be aware of, because that's going to have the biggest impact in our life.
Yeah. And also, like, being aware all the time is exhausting. It's exhausting, and it's exhausting, and I would even say it's boring, because you need to have the right balance between awareness and non-awareness. It's like, it's same as if tomorrow, for example, I tell you I'm going to put you on high energy consistently all the time, non-stop. Basically, you would get bored of it at some point, and you actually realize that in order to enjoy your moment of high energy, you need to have some moment of low energy. You need to have light to see some shadow, or you need to see the shadow to appreciate the light as well. So you need to have the balance of the two. And yeah, maybe monks and something like this that are doing meditation for 8 hours might be in a consistent state of awareness, where they're literally aware of every single thing that happened to them, but they're monks. So yeah, so consistent awareness is exhausting, and that's not something that we want to aim for. We just want to have the right balance.
Right. So then I think that kind of leads into the next question. Can you become consistently aware? And if so, how is that possible, and how can you do that?
So what you want to, if you want to be aware, if you want to be aware on a regular basis, if you want to be aware as much as possible, it's always challenging the why, challenging what you're doing. Basically, the best way to become aware is to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this way? Why am I doing this way? Why am I not doing this in a different way? So this is how you can basically raise awareness about everything that you do. And like I said, you want to have awareness for what motivates you and what triggers you. If you are happy with something that you're doing, for example, if you are happy with the way that you brush your teeth in the morning, why do you need to be aware about how you brush your teeth if you're happy with that? There's no need, right? Now, if you go to the dentist and your dentist start telling you, well, actually, the way you brush your teeth is not appropriate because we can see on the x-ray that you have a problem here, then the next time you're going to brush your teeth, you're going to start to become aware of how you brush your teeth, because you know that you need to change this, because it doesn't have the result that you want to have for your teeth, which is like a healthy teeth or whatsoever. So that explains why sometimes you want to be aware and sometimes you don't need to be aware. So you really want to choose, like sometimes some things will come to you and you're going to become aware of them, and sometimes you're going to go hunting for something. I want to start becoming aware of opportunities, business opportunities, for example. By just saying this, your brain will start looking at different options. If you tell yourself tomorrow, I want to move house, I want to move house, you make yourself aware about the fact that there's some houses on the market. Everywhere you go, you're going to start seeing advertising for houses and all of that, while before you never seen them.
Yeah.
So awareness works like that, is what you're going to bring to your brain.
Right. Is it kind of similar to, I know it's happened to me, and I've talked to some friends and it's happened to them as well. When I bought my first car, up until the day that I bought it, I hadn't noticed the same brand and make of the car that I'd bought. But then as soon as I bought it, everywhere I went, it seemed like I saw like 5 of those cars a day. Is that because that had an impact on my life, that then my brain had become aware and been like, right, you've got this car, now let's look out for them everywhere else? Absolutely.
This is exactly that. And so what we can do is I can give you a very quick exercise right now. It's quite a fun exercise that I love doing. It is how you control your brain. So you can do that. And everyone watching the video, I encourage you to do that. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. And in these 5 seconds, I want you to look around the room and I want you to count how many blue objects, red objects, how many red objects are there in the room around you. Okay, I give you 5 seconds, let's go. Okay, so how many red objects do you have in the room right now?
I saw 5.
Okay, now straight away, without thinking about it, how many blue objects are there?
I don't know.
Right. You don't know because what I've asked your brain to focus on is on the red object. So basically,
Right.
because I asked your brain to focus on the red object, the blue object and the green and the brown and the yellow became completely invisible to your vision. There might be actually 50 blue objects in the room, which completely overwhelm the red one, but you haven't seen them because your brain was switched on. I need to see the red object. So if we go back to the example of the car, because you bought a new car, now you focus on that, this become present in your vision, so now you're going to start seeing it everywhere. But before you never noticed it because for you there was something completely invisible because you never focused on it.
Right. That makes sense.
That's the power of your brain.
That's incredible, and how it's so easily, just like one small thing can completely change your awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. It's one of my favorite games to play with everyone. So if you bring this back into your life, when you start to think about awareness of what motivates me and what triggers me, you're going to start to see those things all the time. I can see what motivates me all the time consistently, so I'm going to hunt for it all the time. I can see what triggers me all the time, so I'm going to start hunting for it. And this one is the tricky one to work with, because with this one, you need to develop the strategy behind it. But if you do that work, then all these things where you didn't feel comfortable, they will switch either to the neutral or even better, to the motivators. Because at the beginning, you didn't feel comfortable to walk into a room full of people. Now you're going to love it because you're going to realize that it's a great way to connect with more and more people and so on and so on. That's how you do it.
Right. So there's not actually a difference between physical, something that you can see, for example, the red objects in a room or the same brand of car, as there is to the positive things that you should be aware of, such as job opportunities. Because job opportunities aren't necessarily like a physical thing that you can see. It's more something that you have to go after and connect to people with. Am I right in saying that there's no difference between whether it's physical or something more mental?
Yeah, it's true. There's absolutely no difference between the two. So now the triggers will be slightly different, where in one situation you tell yourself, I need to look for this. And in the other hand, it's just like kind of a subliminal message that you see. This is something that, for example, in marketing is highly used, the subliminal message that we send to people. So if you have a look, like between two big brands, Pepsi and Coca-Cola, is what will make you choose one over the other. And basically that will be the number of subliminal message that they were able to send to your subconscious brain through the day. Without being aware of it, you've seen Coca-Cola maybe 100 times and you've seen Pepsi maybe 50 times. When you walk into the shop and you feel thirsty, you're going to go for Coca-Cola because you've seen it twice as the other one. But all of this is a work that you do completely subconsciously. You're not aware of this at all. So awareness has that effect, and marketing is good for this, is they make you they can push you to sell product by doing that type of things.
Wow. So sometimes you can be so unaware that you have been aware previously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. That's incredible. Okay, going on to a slightly different path, how can awareness reduce stress?
So remember how we were talking about motivators and triggers? Basically, awareness can reduce stress because you acknowledge what stresses you out. Because you acknowledge what stresses you out, you can develop strategies against it. As simple as this. Instead of having the stress of a situation and you're like, oh, there's nothing I can do about it, then at least you're like, oh, I know that this is going to stress me out. You know what is your source of stress, the root of the stress. I know that if my account at the end of the month is at minus $100, it's going to stress me out. Because I'm aware of that, then I can start developing a strategy behind it. And this is the thing that sometimes people are missing, or sometimes they're like, oh, but it's obvious. But even if it's obvious, it doesn't mean that you acknowledge it the way that it should be. Because if you were to acknowledge the source and the root of what stresses you out, then you would do something about it. Right? So
yeah,
that's how you're going to reduce your stress. Is you need to be aware of what stresses you out and the root cause of it, so you can develop strategy about this, and also avoid situation when you're going to put yourself into a moment of stress. There's also the awareness how to reduce stress is if you become aware of what is important to you. We talk about the motivators, the triggers, and what stresses us out, but also what is important to us. Here we're talking about the values. So basically, if I take the time to talk about what's important for me, is it my family? Is it spending time with my family, spending time with my friends? Is it making money or something like this? Whatever it is, you need to be aware of what is important to you, what is really important to you. And I always tell people, well, tell me what is important to you today. What was important to you over the last 3 months? What was important to you over the last 3 years? Between these 3 different steps, we're able to see kind of a thread for the people. They say, oh, what is important for me is this or that. What is important will change depending on the age and depending on the situation that we have. But the awareness of it will help us to make the decision for the future to move forward. If what's important for me is to spend more time with my family rather than making money, then maybe I'm going to avoid to do 80 hours a week because I'm going to feel frustrated because I don't spend time with my family. And I'm going to be, and I'm going to be aware that it frustrates me right there. And that's stress right there that I don't want to have. So it's about juggling with these different things. There's balance to have, because of course, many people will say, yeah, but I need to do those 80 hours a week because I need to make the money for my family. But you need to put everything back into perspective. And it's about the conception that we have, the awareness that we have about our own conception. What is important for us? Is money that important? Or is being present more important? So there's a whole different conception that you start having when you start to talk about awareness.
Right. So how can, if people know what their values are, how can that impact on your awareness? Is it perhaps that they are focusing solely on their values, so that means they're perhaps they're living their best life because they're aware of what their values are and what's important to them, so they're focusing on that? Or do you think that values play a big part in people's lives?
The values is everything for people. We all have our core values that are very subjective from a person to another, and those values dictate every single thing that we do, the way we think and the way we act. So being aware of our value is having a deep understanding on why we think in a certain way and why do we act a certain way. So it is important to have those values. People do something sometimes and they don't know why they do those things. This is because the values is, that's my value. My value is to help someone that is in need, for example. So because I'm aware of this, whatever I'm doing, I understand this is driven by this. But also, I know that if I do this as my day-to-day job, then I will feel happy because this is in synchronization with my core value. So my job is now in sync with my value. Because of this, it's brilliant. So you see why the awareness becomes more important is because when people are aware of their value, then they're able to look at their value in practice. And it's about, I want to give you an example that could speak a lot more, that could speak volume to that. It's like, I used to work for a company that used to sell coffee, okay? I worked for them for a very long time. And so at the beginning when I started the job, for me, I was just selling coffee. This didn't resonate with my core value. which is impacting life of people or whatever. The way that I was seeing it was just like, I was just delivering a blurb to people, and so they buy a product, and that product could be anything, and I'm not interested in that. A bit further down the track, I've learned about my values, and I learned that one of my values is to be able to help people around the world in need. What I discovered about the product that I was selling was the fact that every time we were selling coffee, we were actually supporting some families around the world that were growing those coffee trees. So because of that, for me, my job wasn't anymore about selling coffee. My job was to support those families growing those coffee tree farms. And this, for me, linked to my value of making a difference for people around the world that are needed, because those people live in countries under development and that type of things, where there's civil war and all of that and so on. So by having someone that has a coffee farm, it can provide for his family, it can provide for his community, we can build school with that and so on. For me, this is a huge impact that sync with my values, and it makes my job a lot more enjoyable instead of just saying I'm just selling coffee. You see the difference between the two? My job at the end of the day hasn't changed. I'm still selling the same product, but my vision towards it is completely different, because I've changed the angle that I'm attacking the situation.
Right. So rather than just perhaps seeing it as a job that you go to and it's not that enjoyable, you're looking at the bigger picture and thinking, well, even though I might just be selling this product, me selling this product helps the people who gave me this product, and then that helps the people because they were able to grow the coffee beans, or
absolutely,
and then that provides a meal for their family, or
exactly that. So when you wake up in the morning, you tell you, oh, I'm going to sell coffee today. No, you tell yourself, I'm gonna help a family live today. Way different speech. And when you go to work, you're not screaming and kicking anymore. You're actually really, really happy to go there, and you're actually really happy to go above and beyond, because you know that the more coffee you're going to sell, the more family you're going to be able to help behind.
Yeah. Okay.